Hi there, I'm enjoying my late night biological coffee, which will still be able to be made when carbon is depleted and is no longer available, or something goes wrong to the world economy, which I hope happens pretty soon. You know, it's all about it's about incentives, and it's about let's say a shock that pushes people towards thinking about the new possibilities that renewables have. You know, you can have a new bill that's now been introduced, which is called the Clean Energy Act, Clean Energy Standard Act of 2012, which is laughable because what it says is that in 2035, which is a long way from now, a long time, all power will be generated for 80% with low carbon technologies and for 20% with normal technologies. That could be normal carbon technologies as we have today. Low carbon means that it just has a little bit less emissions, but you can, if you use carbon, you can always calculate how much energy you need, how much carbon dioxide you will produce for every watt that you generate. So there's no escape from generating carbon. The only thing that it means is that if it's low carbon emission or low carbon emitting, then that means you spend extra energy, so you make more carbon dioxide actually, in order to store the carbon dioxide or turn it into something less harmful, pump it into the earth. That's all a scam. It's a scam. It's simply a way to continue the way we're doing right now, which is completely unnecessary. So that's the Clean Energy Standard Act of 2012, which is basically an attempt to capture our sense of urgency and our industry in the clause of carbon. You know, there's just a simple strategy of you're beating up somebody. He says, "Please stop beating me," and you say, well, "Okay, I'll beat a little slower then." And slower, no, just stop beating me. Quit it. That is but of course no, because there must be a reason for it. Or stop robbing me. No, I'm not going to stop robbing you. That's what I make my living off. That's what I live off. You work very hard. I rob you. That's my thing. So I'll make the Rob Less Act 2012, which means that in, let's say, over the next 20 years, I'll turn the robbing process into a more benign thing. So you get a massage, and I'll use pleasant words when I rob you, like a banker. But 20% will still be harsh, and I'll beat you up and take your money. That's, But I'm willing to change. No, okay, stop it. That's basically that's the good strategy. And if you calculate how much time you need to go completely clean, then it's surprisingly little time. 10 years is enough for the whole world to turn. But you have to have incentives, and you have to have a vision of what's achievable. So just to give an impression of what's achievable, there's a very nice graph that I'll link to below this video of the energy resources on Earth. And there's of course carbon and gas and petroleum, and then there's wind and OTEC and tidal and wave energy and geothermal energy, and there is of course solar, and there's nuclear. Every type of energy has a energy reserve which you can calculate, which has a total. Except for renewables, of course, that are dependent on processes going along around our Earth, which have a yield every year. So solar has a yearly output, wind has a yearly output, tidal, wave have a yearly output. OTEC has a limited output. For some reason, the morons always go for the limited potential, because what happens, for instance, just to explain OTEC, which is ocean temperature differential exploitation or something like that, basically every energy conversion process depends on the temperature differential. That's just a standard law, and if you know that the differential, if you know that's derived from the steam engine era, the higher the temperature differential that you can exploit, the more energy you can extract from it. So the more usable energy you can make. So if you have, let's say, steam of 100 degrees, which is the lowest temperature you can get steam of, and then you cool it down to 99 degrees, that's very little. That's a very small drop of temperature, and that drop will, of course, for instance, if you move a piston, as it moves the piston, the steam will cool, and as it cools it will condense and it will become liquid, flow back into the boiler and be heated to 100 degrees again and go into the piston. But the force that the piston endures is really, really small. If the steam is 500 degrees and you can drop it to 100, then you have much more let's say volume that you can push pistons away and etc. And you end up with a let's say you have to complete the total energy in a temperature differential, and then you have the exploitable energy in the temperature differential, and of course cunningly usually the efficiency of technology is expressed in percentages of that potential exploitable amount. So for instance solar panels can be let's say 15% overall efficient, but somebody can claim that they're 50% efficient if it's 50% of the maximum Carnot efficiency that they can achieve. Well, anyway, long story short, but OTEC is a very low temperature differential technology, which means that you're going to have enormous overhead and enormous efforts in order to get the energy out of there, while the oceans are just like they're mountains of heavy water, which means it weighs a ton per cubic meter and it's just moving around. You only have to kind of put a propeller in it somewhere and you get massive amounts of energy. But people like to focus on OTEC because it delays the whole renewable thing and it wastes a lot of money. It keeps people busy consuming carbon while not threatening the carbon hegemony. It's a difficult word for me, but anyway. But what was I going to say? Okay, well, the energy potential of coal, if you add up coal, oil and gas, you end up with 900 plus 240 is 1140, 1315 terawatt years, and that's a lot, of course. That there's no doubt, there's a lot of energy. So 1315 terawatt years. A terawatt is 10 to the 12th watt, so that's 1,000 times a billion, and a watt year is also difficult to, of course it's a watt, joule per seconde per second, and then times 60 for the hour or for the minute, times 60 for the hour, times 24 for the day, times 365 for the year, and then you have, so it's still a lot more. Actually, I think I have it here somewhere. It's still about 3 million times more, 31 million times more, I'm not sure. But anyway, that's 1315. And that's it. Then we're done. Then there's no more gas, coal, oil left on this planet. We have burned everything and we have destroyed our ecosystem. The annual output available from the sun, which is every year, so it's not just one time and then it's over, is 23,000 terawatt year. So 1315 versus 23,000, and that's only solar. If you take tidal and you take the correct number, because it has a very conservative number here, tidal energy, wave energy, is 2,000 terawatt year every year. See, so you have to be a complete sadomasochist to keep this up. To both have to fit yourself into this mold of renewable of carbon energy, of like this. Oh, we have to build a pipeline to Alaska. That's the only thing we can do. And you know, and deny yourself the enormous potential of solar, mainly solar, tidal, and geothermal is not even in the picture, because geothermal is everywhere. Because everywhere is, if you go deep enough, you know, like James Cameron, sometimes you have to go 8 kilometers deep, you end up with the surface of the Earth. If you go a little bit deeper, you get geothermal energy, which is actually nuclear energy for the biggest part, which is natural nuclear deterioration, or let's say isotopes that fall apart in the Earth's core. So it's really, in my view, and just with the facts at hand, so just say 1315 and then we're done, and 23,000 every year and that's clean energy, you have to be a complete moron sadomasochist and really like to suffer a lot in order to keep that up. That's why the politicians these days appear to be so enormously stupid, because they are enormously stupid. The politicians in the US mainly, in Holland a little bit too, but they rather suffer enormously in order to achieve something very insignificant in their own life. And very importantly, usually a very important factor is that they are better off than everybody else. That's very important for them. So they have to be stupid enough to think that that's more important than having everybody being better off, including themselves. That's basically, I'm beginning to believe that that's the main difference between the, let's say, the GOP parties and the liberal parties. It is that the GOP party takes very deep satisfaction out of the fact that they are better off. That has to be the important differentiating factor that motivates them. I have no other. Lately I've been in local politics again, not by choice, but because people around me start to be political, start to be completely moronic. And the only explanation I can give is that there are some people that have suffered, and because they have suffered, they now expect others to suffer at least the same amount in order to achieve the same thing. And so there's two sides to that. Other people need to suffer first, otherwise they won't get what you have if you're thinking like that. And you have to have something that the other people don't have. You have to be exclusive in your possessions, in your lifestyle. And that is important. That has to stay that way. Otherwise it doesn't work anymore. Otherwise you are basically shown to have been a fool, to have wanted, to have been, let's say, led to make yourself suffer so much. So all that ambitious shit going on in companies and people sucking up to the boss, some women literally, usually in America. That's what the impression that you get if you're in the West or in Russia. You know, all that stuff is just to demonstrate how dumb you really are. Because you don't have to do that. Because you're competing for limited resources, the 1315 terawatt a year still left in terms of fossil fuel, while if you go outside and you look up into the sky, there's 23,000 terawatt years of energy every year. Talk about pension, you know. Anyway, and in terms of technology, and I have to keep this short because last time I got cut off at 15 minutes again. For instance, there's lithium-ion ultracapacitors, which are fast charging batteries. Charge in a few seconds, and then they have the capacity of batteries. But they're not used in cars. Anyway, I'll quit here, and I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you start seeing the bright side, which is up in the sky. Thanks for listening.